It all started at a party at my friend's place. He's an artist and rents a studio in the industrial part of the city. If you can imagine what Detroit looked like in the 1920s, you can easily picture this place. A bunch of old factories from the last century stretch for about 10 blocks, most of them abandoned. That night I had a bit too much to drink and fell asleep on the couch in the studio. I woke up around 4 in the morning. The sun hadn't risen yet, but it was already light enough to see something. I decided I didn't want to stay there any longer and decided to call my girlfriend so she could drive me home, because walking alone through empty streets at that hour was clearly not an option. Being a wonderful girl, she agreed and said she would be there in half an hour and would call me when she arrived. 10 minutes later my phone battery died, so I decided to sit on the windowsill and watch for her car. I sat there for a while, then my eyes started to close and I slowly began to doze off. I was woken by some kind of noise. It wasn't very loud, but enough to bring me back to reality. I looked out the window and scanned the area, but saw no one. Across the street from the studio, next to a pile of garbage bags and a huge dumpster, I noticed a computer and a monitor lying on the ground. I hadn't seen them there before. When my girlfriend arrived, I went outside, greeted her, and just as I was about to get into the car, I suddenly remembered that my friend was having problems with a power supply unit. I decided to go over to the discarded computer and see if there was anything else that could be salvaged. The monitor was smashed, but the system unit seemed almost undamaged, so I shoved it into the trunk and we drove off. About a week passed. I had completely forgotten about the system unit until my girlfriend called and told me to come pick it up already. That same evening I brought it home and decided to connect it to my monitor to see if it worked. To my surprise, it did. It even had an operating system installed, apparently a clean one. Out of curiosity I typed words like porn, sex, and so on into the search, hoping to find a hidden stash of pornography that the previous owner had forgotten about. The search turned up nothing. I searched for image files and again found nothing. Then I searched for video recordings and discovered one file. It was called Barbie.avi and was hidden in the Windows/System32 directory. I launched it. The recording lasted about an hour and appeared to be amateur footage. On the video was a girl sitting in a chair against a white background and saying something. I fast-forwarded through most of the recording, the action still didn't change. Then I decided to watch the whole thing to find out what she was talking about, but about 15 seconds after the start of the filming the sound began to deteriorate, and her voice became impossible to make out against various noises and interference. I couldn't distinguish a single word. Then I tried working with the video, adjusting the levels to make her voice clearer. That helped a little, but I still couldn't understand what she was saying. I was intrigued and began paying attention to her face and body language. It seemed as if she was being asked some questions, because from time to time she would stop talking, as if listening to something, and then start speaking again. After 15 minutes of filming, her face turned red and became somewhat distorted, as if she was being asked questions that disturbed her. But she continued answering them anyway. Soon she started crying and sobbed hysterically for the rest of the video. I was only able to read a few words from her lips. One of them was the word skin. She repeated this word many times throughout the recording. In one place she even pulled the skin on her arm and said the word. By the 40th minute of the video she was already crying so hard that she could barely look at the camera. At that point she stopped talking and for the rest of the recording simply cried with her head lowered. Strangely enough, she never got up from the chair and didn't even move. Then the screen went dark. I was in shock. I rewatched the recording several times, trying to find some clues in her movements that could shed light on what had actually happened here. I wanted to know more. I noticed that after the screen goes dark, the video continues for another 10 minutes, and 2 minutes after the dark screen the recording resumes. The video was shaking very badly, and the picture on the screen was barely discernible. It showed a pair of legs walking along railroad tracks. I decided that the camera had been left on by accident while it was being carried somewhere. The person on this recording walks along the tracks for about 6 minutes, then turns into the forest and walks along something like plywood lying on a pile of leaves. The person walks along this improvised plywood path until the end of the video. At that moment my heart started pounding hard with excitement, because a few miles from me there were railroad tracks that looked very similar to those in the video. I simply had to check. I called my friend Ezra, a muscular guy, and convinced him to go on a small adventure with me. I'm not particularly powerfully built myself, so I figured that if we were going to wander through the woods looking for who knows what, a man with a pile of muscles would definitely not hurt. The idea of finding out the truth about this video excited me so much that I couldn't fall asleep for a long time. The next morning was sunny. I took a flashlight, a camera, and a hunting knife with serrated edges, then went to get Ezra. When I arrived at his house, he was still asleep. When I tried to wake him, he told me to go to hell. But I was already set on going, so I decided to set out without him. I parked my car at the railroad station, grabbed my things, and started walking along the tracks. About 2 hours later I saw a broken sheet of plywood, and my knees went weak with excitement. I dug under the fallen leaves and discovered a small path of plywood leading into the forest. I slowly walked along the path, carefully looking around. From time to time I stopped and listened, but everything was quiet. I had never been so nervous in my life. I had no idea what to expect at the end of this path. The thicket of the forest parted, and I came out onto a small clearing. Then I saw it, a house almost swallowed by the forest. It looked as if no one had lived there for 20-30 years. I took out my camera and took a few pictures. A few yards from the house stood a shed covered with rusty metal sheets. For a while I sat among the trees, trying to assess the situation. I didn't want to step out into the open because I was afraid someone might notice me. It took me some time to gather the courage to approach the house. The door was ajar, and I pushed it open, relieved to notice that it was light enough inside. I put away the flashlight, took out the camera, and took a few more pictures. There was no furniture in the house. The floor was littered with bricks, pieces of wood, and gravel, and some of the walls had huge holes. The first thing that seemed strange to me was that one of the doors in the first room, which apparently led to the basement, looked too new for this house, and that it was the only locked door in the house. Besides, when I went up to the second floor, I saw chairs and a folding table there that also seemed fairly new. But what unsettled me the most was the bathroom. The dust had been wiped from the mirror, and in the bathtub I saw a cellophane oilcloth that still had drops of water on it. While I was standing bent over the bathtub, a loud moan suddenly came from very nearby. In horror I jumped out of the room, got out of the house through a broken window, and ran back toward the railroad. Halfway there I realized that I had probably mistaken the sound of water in a pipe for a moan, but this momentary relief was replaced by fear when I thought about where a working water supply could have come from in an abandoned house in the middle of the forest. More than 2 months have passed since this happened. I don't plan on going back there yet. If I ever decide to do it, it won't be alone and I will be well armed. The video is still in my possession, and I have no desire either to show it to people or to go to the police. Sometimes I watch the recording of the crying girl again and wonder how she might be connected to that house. This mystery still draws me, and if I do manage to unravel it completely, you will be the first to know. And if something bad happens to me during a visit to the house, well, this story will remain unfinished.